Welcome to Relationships on Reddit. In this series, we look at posts on Reddit. We'll check out some of the responses. I'll provide some coaching questions for exploration, as I would for a client who is in the situation. Then finally, I'll provide my commentary at the end of just being myself, unfiltered and unadulterated. Hi, I'm Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. Check out my links below if you're interested in working with me for group coaching or one-on-one coaching. The goal of exploring these posts is to have you become more discerning, intentional, and successful in your dating and relationships. Let's jump into this Reddit post about honestly the wellness of a partner and how it can impact the quality of your relationship. Let's get into it. How important is it for my 39 male and my girlfriend, 40 females, inner freak to match? I, 39 male, have been dating a wonderful woman, 40 female, for 3 months. We met on a dating app and hit it off immediately. We were both looking for a serious relationship. We have an amazing connection, and she's the first woman that I've dated that has zero drama in her life. She's gorgeous, successful, and we share a passion for fitness. Simply put, I'm falling in love with her. When we first got together, she told me that she has strict Christian values. While I respect that, I'm more of an atheist and aren't a fan of organized religion. I see religion like politics. You and your partner don't have to agree on them. We have amazing sex. It's passionate and intense. Our sex drives match. When we first got together, I told her that I'm into BDSM and was curious what her kinks are and what she'd like to try so we can explore them together. She's against all of it and isn't open to reading about it, discussing it together, or trying anything new at any time, even years down the road. No spanking, no sex toys, no restraints, heels and lingerie were a maybe sometime. She will give me a BJ but not finish me with her mouth. But she's fine with me going on down on her multiple times a day. She hates porn. She won't talk dirty or sext or even swap pictures of each other. I've been in a couple of dom sub relationships and really enjoyed it. I told her that I like it to be a component of my relationship and don't want kink incorporated every time we have sex. I still want to make passionate love sometimes, but would enjoy kink on occasion. She told me she sees all of that as unhealthy and immoral. She didn't really kink shame me, but I could feel her strong disapproval. I'm not ashamed of what turns me on. I'm proud of my inner freak. She asked me if I can live without that in my life, and I said yes, since it's been months and I've been more than satisfied with our sex life. Things are going fantastic with us, and I'm happy. We've never even had an argument. My problem is that I see this going long term, and that would mean that I never get to have kink in my life again. I don't know if I can do that, and it feels like I'm being untrue to myself. I realize that would mean I would need to break up with her since she can't give me what I want and we aren't compatible in that way. It just feels crazy to me to break up with someone because I may need something more in the future. I don't want to waste her time or break her heart. If I were to break up with her, I'd know she'd feel like it came out of the blue and be blindsided. And then, okay, it also says TLDR. I keep going back to the conversation when she asked if I can live without kink. And I'm wondering if we are incompatible. Do I grenade a healthy, happy relationship for something I might miss down the road? Now let's take a look at some of the responses. So response 1 by Snow Recipes 9891 said, if you not being able to do things will cause you having resentments, then yes, you'd need to break up. Compatibility is the only part that leads to healthy longevity in relationships. Now, Trish SF says, you aren't compatible. You will hold out hope that she'll loosen up. She won't. If you try to even gently move forward a bit, she will not be okay with that. Vanilla forever. Not even vanilla, but something less than that forever. K12PCB says, I hate seeing the responses as leave. But in honesty, alignment in this area is key to long lasting term. And if there is no openness to anything you express a desire to enjoy together, then that also shows an unwillingness to compromise. Personally, I wouldn't marry someone with that incompatibility. Zeal, zealous ideal underscore till 683 says, it doesn't sound crazy to break up with someone because you may need more in the future. If you thought you might really want kids and she was dead set against, of course you'd need to break up. So the question is, how important is this to you? Honestly, it sounds crazy to me to break up over this because I can't imagine how it could matter that much to someone. But it obviously matters to you someone somewhat, and only you can decide how much. Formerly user LFC says, careful on the never had an argument bit. Never arguing with a spouse can also mean you are not comfortable speaking your mind, which can backfire long term. Make sure you are getting your feelings out there and not keeping everything negative to yourself. Moving on, we're going to jump into a segment that I like to call green flags and red flags. We basically look at the post that I just read through, and from a coaching perspective, I'm going to identify some of the green flags and the red flags to help you become a more informed and better person to date, and better when you go out on your own dating exploits and adventures. So let's start with some of these green flags. So, three green flags that I saw in this Reddit post. Number one, there was a strong initial connection. So, OP is 39 and the woman he's dating is 40, and they seem to share a very strong initial connection. He recognized that they hit it off immediately when they met on a dating app, which is really good nowadays, as we know. If we've tried dating apps, they're not that great all the time and sometimes can be trash. But this mutual understanding and strong connection seems to have laid the way or the path for a pretty fruitful relationship so far that they've been together 3 months. A second thing that I notice is a green flag here is there seems to be open communication between OP and the woman he's dating. So he has been open about his sexual preferences, and also it sounds like he has been honest with the woman he's dating about his sexual experiences in the past, maybe even being in a dom and sub relationship and things he enjoys. And that is a very healthy component. The fact that they're discussing them, even if they aren't in agreement on them, it is healthy that they have this transparency and openness to have those type of discussions in their partnership thus far. And then shared values and interests. Apart from their romantic relationship, they seem to, OP and the woman he's dating seem to share a passion for fitness and a drama free lifestyle. And those are big pillars, honestly. That's indicating that they are quite compatible in other areas in terms of daily habits, lifestyle habits, which can greatly contribute to long term satisfaction and success of a romantic relationship. Moving on to some red flags that I saw in this post. The first one is mismatched views on sexuality. There seems to be a significant mismatch in their sexual compatibility of OP being that he enjoys BDSM and kinks from his girlfriend who is very clear and upfront about her, strict Christian values and upbringing and her views on sex. This fundamental difference in views about sexuality can lead to dissatisfaction and resentment, etc. If they choose to continue in this relationship. Not an absolute, but it is definitely a major component that they need to consider. Number two, another red flag, there seems to be a lack of willingness to compromise. So, OP, from what he has told us in this Reddit post, his girlfriend has an unwillingness to explore and is on like maybe about certain things about like lingerie and heels in the bedroom. And that can indicate that there's a very rigid stance on sexual experimentation. That's not a bad thing because that is definitely tempered by a person's morals, upbringing, personal experiences, and possible trauma in their past. So, that one on the surface, I would say is more of a yellow flag. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a whole red flag because there's so many layers to that particular one. And if they don't if they don't really explore that together in their desire to be in a relationship, it can absolutely be a non-starter for them to be able to go forward in a healthy way. A third red flag that I see is that OP may potentially be sacrificing his personal desires in contemplating the suppression of his identity. He calls it his inner freak to maintain a relationship, which seems, from what he's telling us in a lot of other aspects, is very healthy, very compatible. And he admits he's falling in love with this woman. So there seems to be a lot of pluses going on. And that is hard to find in this day and age. So it seems like he may be willing to sacrifice a very significant portion of himself to be in this relationship, which might lead to long term unhappiness, feelings of unfulfillment, potential depression, and just feeling inadequate because he has to sacrifice something very important to him. And then stop being his authentic self in order to stay in this relationship. Once again, these are things that if they have a desire to be in a relationship with one another long term, they need to be really looked at, expressed, and maybe go to counseling about them. And the only reason I say that is because OP is a fully grown man at 39 and his girlfriend is a fully grown woman at 40. If these people were in their 20s, I would say this just not compatible and write it off because they are two full grown adults, fully formed brains, and at different spaces in their lives or different stages of their lives. I think this one may be worth coming to the conclusion, we like each other, let's talk about this further, maybe through going to counseling. So those are just some of the red flags that I noticed. Now we're moving on to some coaching questions. These are the type of questions that I would ask in a session, during a coaching session with a client who is experiencing a similar situation to what I described in the Reddit post in their own dating lives. The purpose of these questions is to better inform you about your decisions in dating, gain more self awareness, gain more awareness of other people's circumstances, and be prepared to pivot, move, and make wiser decisions. Question 1. What values and aspects of a relationship are most critical for long term happiness and fulfillment? When you reflect upon this question, definitely put it in the context of sexual compatibility, as in with OP's post, and reflect upon any situations you've been in the past, in relationships, situationships, potential relationships, where that was a core component or even a major component or factor in your decision to move forward or not move forward with that particular relationship, and why. Question 2. How might navigation occur in a relationship where there is a significant mismatch in sexual preferences or openness to exploring new experiences? Think about this question from the perspective of the age you are right now. Don't think about when you were maybe in your early 20s or mid 20s. Think if you are that age right now. Of course, think about it from that, but think about it if you are 35 plus, which is the demographic that I mainly work with in my coaching practice, how you feel about that and answer it from that perspective, because you really want to give yourself the space to deep dive and understand where you're at, what you're looking for, and really understand the areas you may be willing to compromise or not. Question 3. What are the possible consequences of compromising on significant aspects of sexuality, and how might this impact a sense of self and relationship satisfaction over time? Once again, think about this from the perspective of where you are today. Do not put yourself in the shoes of your younger self. Put yourself in the shoes of where you are now. And if you met a person, or if you're currently dealing with a person where this is the case or has been the case. Question 4. In what ways can the evaluation of whether the positive aspects of a relationship can outweigh the areas of disagreement, specifically regarding sexual needs, be conducted? Think of this as you're answering this question in the headspace of when you're dealing with a very big aspect of a relationship, a very central point, and you need to have a discussion where there is effective communication, where there is safety to speak from each one of you's perspective, you and the person you're dealing with, and then what is your desired goal of confronting that area or talking about that area when you have that discussion. Question 5. How can someone who prefers to show love through actions Also incorporate meaningful verbal expressions to meet their partner's emotional needs. In this particular Reddit post, uh, center this from the perspective of, say, OP, or think about this from the perspective of OP is probably one of his love languages, physical, is touch. And how can he then convey and honor his partners? And we're making assumptions based upon him saying that she is very strict in her expression of sexual needs and sexuality with him. How can he make sure he's meeting her emotional needs? Now put yourself in those shoes. If you have one love language and your partner has another, how can you make sure everyone's feeling supported? If you're the one who maybe love language is something different than physical touch, your main one, how do you need to be honored in that way? And think of that scenario in the context of answering this question. And I really believe it will help you drill down to get the true answer that you're looking for, or that will help you uncover, not looking for, and that's what you want from a partner. This question will better help you articulate that to someone. Now let's jump into a section that is just my thoughts. I want to give you my unadulterated feedback on this. I answered the questions in the last section, but definitely just to go a little more into this particular area and some kind of words of wisdom for the ladies out here who are in these dating streets, especially on these apps, trying to really navigate and do the best and safest thing for themselves. All right, just my thoughts on this. I really like this post that I saw on Reddit because I believe it's a very common situation that people find themselves in. And I like that OP, the poster, is 39 and the woman he's dating is 40. So we're, like I said, we're talking about grown people. He was able to articulate and lay out the things that are working in his relationship, which shows a sign of some emotional maturity and not just bashing, his girlfriend. And he never bashed her at all about the things she's not interested in. I get that he wants to continue in this relationship because there are a lot of similarities, commonalities. There's a lot of compatibility. There's a lot, like you said, he's falling in love. My concern is if they don't really get to the root of this thing, and it could just be, and it's perfectly fine if that is, that she comes from a very strict Christian upbringing. She has a very, very scoped and laser focused view on what sexuality is and how it needs to be expressed in a relationship, and she's not willing to go outside of that. If they have the conversation or really work, focus on that, and that's where she's at, that's okay. He has to be willing to be honest with her and himself and say, hey, I don't think I can move forward with that because I do like the kink. I do like the spice. And I would feel that I'm really compromising a large part of myself to not have it. Now, as I said earlier, I also believe this is a multi-layered thing. It could be that's her belief. She doesn't want to compromise. There could be other things beneath it for both of them. Does he like kink maybe because he has trauma? Not saying that people that like kink have trauma. That's not what I'm saying. But it also could be, is she so strict and focused and very narrow, has a very narrow view of things because she has trauma? Because of their ages, I want to reiterate this. I said this earlier. I believe it would be worthwhile for this particular couple, if they want to move forward, to explore couples counseling. Couples counseling, premarital counseling is a very valuable tool when you go to a, certified therapist who can do this, a licensed therapist who can really help both of them explore and unpack. And even if they would to decide, come to the consensus that, hey, we're not compatible with one another long term, but we really appreciate what we taught one another, both of them will leave the relationship being more self-aware, being more honest, open, and also um, learning how to start the healing process from breaking apart from something that they thought would be great. So in this context, I believe that OP would be best served, him and his girlfriend, really exploring counseling together, because I think there's some untapped issues on both sides. Not to say women who are sexually conservative or very narrowly viewed in how they believe sexuality should be expressed have problems, but I think it's worth them having a real discussion with an uninvolved third party. And the same with him, not saying because he has some kinks and things he likes in the bedroom that he's coming from a place of trauma or abuse. But once again, I think it's worth exploring, and both of them maybe uncovering some realities about themselves that up until this day they are unaware or maybe unconscious of. So I think this relationship actually has a great shot. It all depends on what they are both willing to do together to work through it. And yes, hint, hint, that means outside of the bedroom. Counseling is a wonderful tool. I think their OP's next steps needs to be shopping around for counselors with his girlfriend, and they really can come together and move forward with this issue. And then on the other side, if they decide to stay together and they can work through on both ends what this is, it'll also prove to them they know how to effectively partner for the resolution of an issue that's facing them as a couple, which is a very important skill set to have in a long-term partnership, especially a marriage. So I think this OP, with the way he laid things out and with how things are currently going in his relationship, I think it's worth exploring with a counselor. Another thing I noticed, I don't think it's a red flag, but I do think it's something that they want to, it would be worthwhile to address in counseling, is the never fighting. I really believe when people are of a certain age, like when you get grown, okay, when you get grown, and you understand that you are with somebody that has a lot of positives, there will be times when you suppress a part of yourself in order to continue moving forward with this person. I'm not talking about the other person being controlling or demanding. I'm talking about you are grown enough and mature enough to recognize this person has a lot of pluses going for them, and what you two have together is really great, and you don't want to mess that up, air quotes. And therefore you may suppress anything that you would bring to the forefront. So that's another kind of secondary thing I think they can address in counseling, because never fighting, it depends on what they mean by that. Does that mean he never disagrees with her and she never disagrees with him, or what does that mean? I think that's worthy of deeper exploration as well, which can happen through some couples counseling with a counselor that they feel very comfortable and safe with, and is really, licensed, knowledgeable, and well versed in doing that type of work. So I think OP has a good shot with this woman. I think it's just worth them exploring and doing some deeper work. Now, 3 months in, that's not a long time. So they would have to discuss, if they decide to take the counseling route, how long they would do it. Hey, we want to try 3 months of counseling and see what where we stand at 6 month mark. Or they could part on a handshake. I would be a little sad if he decided to take that route, because I think there's things about himself that needs to be uncovered and he needs to be aware of and conscious of, as well as I think there are things about the girlfriend that she needs to uncover and be more conscious of as she's moving through the dating world. So I really do. I root for this couple. I really hope they take the route of going to counseling and being committed to finding positive, effective, nonviolent resolution for this particular issue, whether that's staying together or parting ways. Either or, I would like both of them, in an ideal world, both of them to come out richer for that experience and help them both be led down greater paths of self-awareness, self-work, etc. So definitely rooting for them, and I hope that they decide to move forward with counseling. Thank you for joining me today for this episode of Relationships on Reddit. Watch this video again and answer the questions several times over. It's okay. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, check out the links below. Also, check out my podcast, The Successful Invisible, next season publishing soon on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until next time, this is your relationship coach, Janelle, signing off.